briefly before we offer Salat al-Maghrib, it doesn't mean that a person isn't to sacrifice brother or sister, husband or wife, mother or father. But it means that you can't waste your wife and your children, in which they don't have the basic bare necessities, because you're absolutely, totally devoted to seeking and learning hadith. But sacrificing, not having the luxuries, not having some of the extra comforts, that's a different story. And my advice is, with regards to a brother or a sister, is make sure that you're compatible for a person before you marry them. If you marry a brother and you know this brother is devoted to his studies and he's serious about his studies, a brother who has both talent, he has a good deal of talent, he has potential, and he's also, as we said, dedicated and hardworking. Don't marry the brother because you think he's handsome, which many sisters they do. He's cute. His knowledge is, on the side. But I'm marrying him because I like the way he looks, or he's funny, or he has a good personality, or he dresses nice, he's handsome, he always looks nice. If that's the main distinguishing feature that a person has, that's what you should marry him for initially as the main thing. And it doesn't mean you're just marrying him because he's a superstar or you're gold digging for ilm, no. But what purpose is you being married to someone whose day and night, their daily life is ilm, 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 and you have no desire, no concern about that lifestyle? There lies no doubt it's going to be a time bomb. It's waiting to explode. This hardship, this difficulty, this sacrifice, this problem, and the first thing she's going to say, I'm not happy. The only thing you do is study. The only thing you know is studying. The only thing you care about is studying. The only thing that makes sense to you is studying. And he's going to say, well, that's my life. Before you married me, you knew that was my life. Everybody understand this? Or the exact opposite. You marry your sister, and you don't marry her because she's studious. And you knew that she didn't have the greatest amount of beauty. She wasn't the most attractive. She wasn't from this background or this lineage. She didn't have these things like that. And her main thing, the thing that makes her the most beautiful is ilm. And you have no desire for that, that makes no sense. It makes no sense for you to be with someone and their main highlighting point you're not even interested in. That's unreasonable. That's what? It's unreasonable. You can marry somebody for other reasons. He's knowledgeable, he's studious, and he's also handsome. Alhamdulillah. But the strongest feature that he has is his religion and his ilm. For you to have no concern whatsoever about that main feature, that doesn't make too much sense. And as I said, it's bound to be a clash. It's bound to be a what? A clash. So if you're not willing to sacrifice and go through hardships for studying, then that's something that you shouldn't get yourself involved in. As far as the husband wasting his family, not giving them the necessary things that they need, then that's what Al-Khatib is talking about right here. Everybody understand this? So a sister, she says, my husband didn't look after me, he didn't take care of me, and the sister, she ends up leaving Islam. Or she ends up leaving the sunnah. I don't want to practice sunnah, I don't want to wear niqab and hijab and gloves, I don't want to do none of that stuff anymore. She can't blame that on the system. But she has to blame that on the abuse of her husband of the system. Because the system clearly tells us what? Not to do that. And most problems that the people have are based off of personal or cultural issues. And the system is really at fault. But the people, they blame it. The average person who leaves Islam, billah, 9 out of 10 apostates, you find most of them, they only apostatize or leave Islam because of personal issues that they thought were Sharia issues. The Sharia never said this. There's no verse in the Quran that states this, that a woman has to walk 15 paces behind her husband. Where does it say that in what hadith? Or there's no honor killing in the deen. These things don't exist. Those are cultural perversions that have become Islamicized. And the people, they think, oh, well, this is Islam, and it's not Islam. Everybody clear this or not? So it's very important for understand this, is that there is a system of seeking ilm. And we said the general classes, the general have ikhlas, do this, do that. But for us to be professionals, then we have to have a fine-tooth comb and know the specific adab with the general adab. The specific, finely tuned issues, as we've explained before. And this is one of them, is to have some type of trade, some type of skill, some type of way of making a basic living. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have the finest of things every single day. Everybody clear this or not? خير إن شاء الله. Moving forward. الرابع
الرابع ذكر ما يجب تقديم حفظه على الحديث.
Prioritizing what you are to study and what you are to memorize. A student of knowledge must prioritize. Time is limited. Energy is limited. Resources are limited. So you have to be smart and wise, and that comes through prioritizing. You can't study everything all at once. Rather, there's certain things in which you say you don't have time to study at all. Not at once. There's no time. You don't have time to get in. You don't have time. Especially if your time overseas is limited. When you graduate, when you leave the school, that's a different story. And some of our mashaykh would tell us, certain books they would say don't read when you're in the jamia. You read these books in your country. When you go home, you've graduated, then you study certain books. But here you have a limited amount of time. Limited amount of time. So you must prioritize what you study and what you memorize. Before you memorize hadiths and devote yourself to hadith in the way of hadith, there are other things that should come first. That should come first. Those are
ينبغي للطالب أن يبدأ بحفظ كتاب الله عز وجل إذ كان أجل العلوم وأولاها بالسبق والتقديم. فإذا رزقه الله تعالى حفظ كتابه فليحذر أن يشتغل عنه بالحديث أو غيره من العلوم اشتغالا يؤدي إلى نسيانه.
The Quran takes precedence, the most virtuous, the most superior thing. And when a person has memorized the Quran, or, Jazakallah khairan, even if a person doesn't memorize the entire Quran, because that's the issue in itself, it's not necessarily a condition. It's not a binding condition for a person to memorize the entire Quran. But for a person who has memorized the entire Quran, then he should not be so preoccupied with other things in which he forgets what he's memorized of the Quran. Person specializes in hadith, specializes in fiqh, specializes in seerah. That doesn't mean that you now forget the Quran. Everybody understand this? And some of the ulama of Islam, they say forgetting the Quran is from the major sins. And the reason why they say it's haram, not it's haram to forget, you're a human being, but they say you only forget the Quran based off of neglecting it. Based off of neglecting it. They said that's the only way that you forget the Quran. Because Allah says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا, Allah says, we have made the Quran easy. We have made it simplified. The Quran, a person is divinely facilitated. Do you understand this? It's not like no other book. So for you to forget something that is so simple and divinely facilitated, that proves that you yourself were doing what? Awali, going against what? You were going against the grain by abandoning it and neglecting it and disobeying its commands. Everybody understand this? Khairan inshallah ta'ala. He says, ثُمَّ الَّذِي يَتْلُو الْقُرْآنَ فضل.
ثم الذي يتلو القرآن من العلوم أحاديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والسننه فيجب على الناس طلبها إذ كانت أس الشريعة وقاعدتها. قال الله تعالى وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا. وقال تعالى من يطع الرسول فقد أطاع الله. وقال وما ينطق عن الهوى. أنا محمد أخبرنا محمد بن أحمد بن يعقوب أخبرنا محمد بن نعيم الضبي أخبرني محمد بن يوسف بن ريحان قال حدثني أبي قال سمعت أبا عبد الله محمد ابن إسماعيل يعني البخاري يقول أفضل المسلمين رجل أحيا سنة من سنن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قد أميتت فاصبروا يا أصحاب السنن رحمكم الله فإنكم أقل الناس.
الله أكبر. He says here, then after the Quran comes the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu the Sunnah. He says the people must seek it and learn it because that is the foundation of the deen. The foundation of the Sharia or the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. As Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in several ayat in the Kitab al-Aziz, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ, whatever the Messenger gives you, then take it. He who obeys the Messenger has obeyed Allah. And the Messenger never speaks from his own desires. And then Al-Khatib rahimahullah, listen to this beautiful quote. He mentions his sanad, his isnad, and it says, Ana, yani akhbarana. You have to learn the different codes of the at-tahammul wal-ada. Hadathani, thana, ana, na. He gives his isnad that goes back to Imam al-Bukhari who says, the best of Muslims is a man who revives a sunnah that has been what? Abandoned. That has died, quote unquote. That the people have forgotten about, the people are ignorant about, the people have stopped implementing. He says this is the best of the Muslims. He says here, فَاصْبِرُوا يَا أَصْحَابَ السُّنَنِ. He says, oh people of hadith, people of sunnah, be patient, because you are the vast minority. Then Imam al-Bukhari lived in what generation? What century? Huh? 3rd century. So if he's saying that the people of hadith are the what? Minority, what about the GTA in 2018? Are you understand this? And the world in which the kuffar, as the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said, يُوشِكُ أَن تَتَدَاعَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْأُمَمْ كَمَا تَتَدَاعَ الْأَكَلَةُ عَلَى قَصْعَتِهَا. Is that the people will come together against you like people who are invited to a banquet come and eat on one platter, in which there's so much political pressure and influence, Muslims being killed and slaughtered, and in which the people are in love with the way of the kuffar, imitating them, looking like them, wanting to be like them, in which they're physically harming, annoying, and harassing people that are trying to follow and learn and practice the sunnah. Every time you travel, this is what happens to you. Everybody understand this? We're going to force you into submission. You want to do this, you want to say this, you want to be about this, no problem. You're not going to what? You're going to suffer. And the moment you give up your values and you compromise and you say what we want you to say and what our interpretation of Islam is, you have no problem and no worries. This is the times in which we live. The times in which we what? In which we live. In which they physically torture people. And if they can't physically torture you because you live in a certain country, then they'll torture you in other means. For you being a person of sunnah and refusing to bend and twist of the modern, politically correct interpretation of what Islam is supposed to be. So if this is the case of, if that was Imam al-Bukhari's time, then what about what? Nowadays. And there was none of those things back then. There was no West in the time of Imam al-Bukhari. Everybody understand this? There was this agency, there was none of those things what? In the time of Imam al-Bukhari. And he said that the people of the Sunnah are the what? Aqallun nas. So this is a lesson for us to be taken. Is be patient. Be easy, because the people of the Sunnah are always going to be the what? The vast minority. But it doesn't matter how small or how big. That's not important. What's important is that you have the truth, the quality. Bidnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب, he then says, قال الشيخ أبو بكر قول البخاري إن أصحاب السنن أقل الناس عنا به الحفاظ للحديث العالمين بطرقه المميزين لصحيحه من سقيمه. وقد صدق رحمه الله في قوله لأنك إذا اعتبرت لن تجد بلدا من بلدان الإسلام يخلو من فقيه أو متفقه يرجع أهل مصره إليه يعولون في فتاويهم عليه، وتجد الأمصار الكثيرة خالية من صاحب حديث عارف به مجتهد فيه، وما ذاك إلا لصعوبة علمه وعزته وقلة من ينجب فيه من سامعيه وكتبته. وقد كان العلم في وقت البخاري غضا طريا، والارتسام به محبوبا شهيا، والدواء إليه أكبر، ورغبة فيه أكثر. وقال هذا القول الذي حكينا عنه فكيف نقول في هذا الزمان مع عدم الطالب وقلة الراغب. He says here, the Sheikh Bakr says that Imam al-Bukhari's statement, Ashab al-Sunan, he means scholars of hadith who are learned and who have a proper understanding and proper mastery of hadith. Those who know the ins and the outs, authentic and inauthentic, weak and sound, etc. He says, and this is a true statement of Imam al-Bukhari. And that's because if you just look at geography, he says, use the dalil of geography. Look at the countries around the world. He says in most places, if not all of them, you're going to find some type of faqih, some type of mutafaqih, some type of mufti, some type of qadi, some type of Islamic cleric, some type of Islamic figure that gives the decisions and the verdicts, and which the people go back to, they ask him questions. He's the one who gets on the news. He speaks about, he makes a statement for the Muslims. He apologizes, for an act that the Muslims what? Didn't do. The Muslims didn't make this attack, but he makes a what? No, an apology. How is this? How do you apologize for something that you didn't do? Can you explain to me how that works? I was not there. I had nothing to do with that incident. If it even took place and happened, how am I now liable and responsible for doing what? Apologizing. Wallahi, that's something which is, that's from the most mind-boggling things of the modern world in which we live. In which I have to make a statement about something which I have what? Nothing to do with. So just stop and reflect on this. So he says here that in every country there's some type of faqih or some type of mutafaqih. He says, however, you'll find many villages, many towns, many states, many countries in which there's not one hadith scholar. There's not one hadith master. He says, khaliyatan. And that's because learning hadith and seeking hadith is something which is difficult. It's something which is burdensome. It doesn't come easily. And it's something which isn't that easy and simple for a person to excel in. For a person to what? For a person to excel in. These sciences, these fields are much easier. They're flashier. But hadith science is backbreaking. It's something that takes longer. It takes more dedication, more devotion. And the limelight that you may get may not be like the what? That which is a fiqh. In which I had people in my class is well known. Or people that didn't go to the college of hadith. Who wanted to go to the college of hadith? But they were forced to go to Sharia. And they would say, if I go back to my country, there's no value of me having a degree in hadith. They won't even consider a hadith degree. They'll say it's useless. Use it as a paper, a napkin. There's nothing that you can do with hadith. And we're talking about Muslim countries. You have a Sharia degree, marhaba. You can be the imam, you can work in the courthouse, you can do this, you can do that. But hadith, there's not much you can do with that here. They would say this and say we would literally starve if we went back to our countries with these degrees from Jamia Islamiyya for hadith. They wouldn't even look at it. This is a reality. So the point is that there are many lands in which no one has knowledge of hadith, but everyone wants the what? The faqih. Everyone wants some type of what? Some type of faqih, some type of fatwa giver. Everybody clear on this or not? He says here, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, the time of Imam al-Bukhari, he says, ilm was fresh. It was organic. It's tari. It was sweet and juicy. Everyone wanted some of hadith. That's when you find most of the ulama of the 3rd century, most of them, they study what? They study hadith. They travel from country to country, learning hadith. He says, and despite that, Imam al-Bukhari, he what? He made that statement. So what do you think about this time period? And Sheikh Bakr, rahimahullah, he died many years ago in Saudi Arabia. The years in which he passed away, the country of Saudi Arabia and the Western countries are still like what? Night and day, let alone the time of Imam al-Bukhari. Everybody understand how scary this is? And if we live, if Allah gives us life, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, we'll be telling our children and our grandchildren the stories of the books that we used to study. And we had to read this. We had to have an iPad. They'd be like, an iPad? You had an iPad? Now, Allahu Alam, what type of technology we have 50 years later. You had to actually download a book on a computer? You had to use Wi-Fi to put it on a MacBook? We're going to tell our children that. And they're going to look at it as something that is unbelievable. Just like the people that came before us. There was no iPad. There was no Maktab al-Shamila. There was no flat screen. There was none of these things. There was nothing but books. And then the people who came what? Before them. وَهَكَذَا. Everybody understand this? So as time goes on, the people become further and further. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ طيب الخامس.
القول في الأسانيد العالية إذا عزم الله تعالى لامرئ على سماع الحديث وحضرته نية في الاشتغال وحضرته نية في الاشتغال به فينبغي أن يقدم المسألة لله أن يوفقه فيه ويعينه عليه ثم يبادر إلى السماع ويحرص على ذلك من غير توقف ولا تأخير ويعمد إلى أسند شيوخ مصره وأقدمهم سماعا فيديم الاختلاف إليه ويواصل العكوف عليه ومذاهب الناس تختلف في ذلك فمنهم من يكتفي بسماع الحديث نازلا مع وجود من يرويه عاليا ومنهم من لا يقتنع بذلك ولا يقتصر على النزول وهو يجد العلو وأهل النظر أيضا مختلفون في ذلك فمنهم من يرى أن السماع النازل أفضل لأنه يجب على الراوي أن يجتهد في معرفة جرح من يروي عنه وتعديله والاجتهاد في أحوال رواة النازل أكثر وكان الثواب فيه أوفر ومنهم من يرى أن السماع العالي أفضل لأن المجتهد مخاطر وسقوط بعض الإسناد مسقط.
The next point, in brief, to summarize it, this is an etiquette that is specific to hadith Because that's the asl of our discussion. This is not a class open for just anybody. We said this is for a specific breed of people that we're trying to address in this class. The general lectures, the general talks. Here we're talking about the etiquette of disciples of hadith specifically. And from that is that which is called seeking a sanad, which is ali, al-isnadul ali. And al-isnadul ali is very simple and it's very basic. Look at it like this. Let's say, for example, your mother tells you a story. And your mother says, I got this from my father, your grandfather. And your grandfather, he's alive, but he lives in a different part of Canada. He lives in a different area or a different section of Canada. But your mother is telling you something that she got from her father. So you take what your mother said. Or if you wanted to, you could travel to your grandfather and listen to him directly and cut out the middle woman, who's your mother. Or let's say great-grandfather. Your mother's father's father. Everybody understand this? Your mother is telling you a story from her grandfather. From her what? From her grandfather. So what you could do is do what now? Skip your mother, skip your grandfather, and then go meet your great-grandfather. Everybody clear on this or not? So you have a shorter chain. You have two ways of getting the information. One has three people, and one only has one. Everybody understand this? So the chain of narration that contains three people is called a sanadun nazil. A sanadun nazil. And the chain that only has one or two people is called a sanadish al-ali. Al-isnadul ali. Like you study in the Biquniyah or Tadhkirah. Al-ali. So you can cut out the middleman and then minimize the intermediaries, or you can suffice yourself with having a longer chain. I don't need to go and hear it from my great-grandfather. I can just take it from my mother. She's trustworthy. Or heard it from my father, etc. Everybody understand this? So this is an etiquette here when it comes to learning and seeking hadith. Should you stay in your country and have a longer chain, or should you get on your horse, travel, and get and obtain a what? Shorter chain. Everybody understand this? A what? A shorter chain of narration. Al-Khatib, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that a person should travel and minimize the people that are in the chain. Less people is a shorter, cleaner chain, let alone is the concept of earning what you get. Everybody understand this? Earning what you get. When you go out and get something, it's not the same as someone delivering it to you. Having more appreciation and more value for that thing. Khairan, inshallah. So this goes to show you here, from one thing you learn 10,000 things. When we study something in Biquniyah or Nukhbat al-Fikr, we also apply it here to the actual real world as well. Khairan, inshallah. As-sadis.
السادس تخير الشيوخ إذا
He says here also the concept of taking the oldest of the teachers that you can find. In other words, to minimize the newer people. Everybody understand this? In Medina, we have teachers who are students of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. And they're older than us. This teacher is 40 years old or 50 years old. And he's a student of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin. So he's telling us what Sheikh Abdul Muhsin said 20 years ago or 30 years ago in the Prophet Masjid. And I can just do what now? I can what? Bypass him and go directly to Sheikh Abdul Muhsin. Everybody understand this? And which now is a sanad is now Ali. طيب. Number 6.
تخير الشيوخ إذا تباينت أوصافهم. درجات الرواة لا تتساوى في العلم، فيقدم السماع ممن على إسناده على ما ذكرنا. فإن تكافأت أسانيد جماعة من الشيوخ في العلو وأراد الطالب أن يقتصر على السماع من بعضهم، فينبغي يتخير المشهور منهم بطلب الحديث المشار إليه بالإتقان له والمعرفة به. وإذا تساووا في الإسناد والمعرفة فمن كان من الأشراف وذوي الأنساب فهو أولى بأن يسمع منه. وبسنده عن شعبة قال: حدثوا عن أهل الشرف فإنهم لا يكذبون. هذا كله بعد استقامة الطريقة وثبوت العدالة والسلامة من البدعة. فأما من لم يكن على هذه الصفة فيجب العدول عنه واجتناب السماع منه. وذكر بسنده عن إبراهيم قال: كانوا إذا أتوا الرجل ليأخذوا عنه نظروا إلى سمته وإلى صلاته وإلى حاله ثم يأخذون عنه.
طيب. The next point he says here is that when the teachers have similar qualities and characteristics, in one aspect, but from another aspect, some are more virtuous than others. How do you pick who to sit with, who to study with? What teacher should you take? Very important point here. And this is something which can save you from a great deal of confusion when you go overseas and study. Who to sit with and who not to sit with. And it doesn't mean just because I don't sit with this one that it's something that's negative or derogatory, or I don't like him, or no, it doesn't mean that. But you have to once again prioritize. And there is a system of prioritizing. There's a what? A system in prioritizing. So he says here, درجات الرواة لا تتساوى في العلم. He says everyone is not on the same level when it comes to learning hadith. Everyone is not on the what? The same level. He says, so first and foremost, we previously mentioned about those who have qidam as-sama', who have shorter chains of narration. They've been around longer. They're more skilled. They're more well-known. He says, so therefore, those who are known for being precise and those who are known of having a great deal of skill and experience, as far as if the people are equal in their skill, if they're equal in their experience, he says that one should look towards lineage. They should look towards what? Lineage and genealogy. He says people who are noble, if you had to choose between one or two sheikhs and they both have the same level of skill, he says they give precedence to one who's from the what? The ashraf, the nobles. And obviously things are very different in our modern time. The French Revolution. It's very hard to read certain things like this and to truly understand them. But back in the day, things were very, very, very different. And this majlis, this sitting that we have right now, probably wouldn't have existed a couple hundred years ago. There would be no noble sitting with a peasant and the same platform, everyone in the same classroom. Everybody understand this? Things didn't work like that. The servant, the slave, the master, the highborn, the king, this one, the aristocrat, the courtier, the people didn't mix and mingle how people mix and mingle today. Everybody understand this in history? Everybody with me or not? Things didn't exist like how they are today. Everybody clear on this or not? People still have these types of stigmas or these different types of, they're stuck up on certain things, but it's nothing like how things were back then. And this is why you find many stories of some of the scholars of hadith, they will refuse to give personal classes to the leader or to the leader's children, like Abu Dawood rahimahullah ta'ala. And he said knowledge is for everyone. Your nobility, your genealogy, your status has nothing to do with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But it was a reality. There was a what? There was a reality. Also, a person's background and a person's lineage, just because Islam says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, it doesn't mean that lineage and genealogy has no place in Islam. And it doesn't mean that a person's background isn't important. And oftentimes someone's background can force them or prevent them from certain virtues and certain vices, just because where a person is from. And sometimes a person may not do it out of taqwa, but he may do it out of shame. I'm ashamed of embarrassing my family name. I'm ashamed of losing my reputation. For the good or for the what? Or for the bad. So if you have someone who has the proper knowledge, the proper qualifications, and they come from a well-known background, then it only makes sense to do what? To take that person. And it's one less excuse for the people to accept the message of the truth. And that's why Herakl, he asked Abu Sufyan about Muhammad. Where does he come from? What's his lineage like? And he says that he's from the best from among us. And Herakl, he says, وَكَذَلِكَ الرُّسُلُ. He says, and that is the case of the messengers. Meaning in the biblical scriptures, the messengers are always sent from the what? Top lineage. And that's because it gives the people one less excuse. أَرَاذِلُنَا بَادِيَ الرَّأِي. Everybody understand this? People that are low and base, no one wants to follow them. They want to follow the noble people, the strong people, the people in the forefront. Everyone understand this or not? So if the messenger is telling the people to avoid something that their forefathers have been doing, their ancestors have been doing, and this and that, and so on and so forth, and he's of low lineage, then they're going to say, we're not going to follow him. Look at his background. Everybody understand this? But if he comes from a good, strong lineage, then that's one less what? One less excuse. Everybody understand his wisdom. Khairan, inshallah. So he mentions that this is one of the points here, and the finely tuned etiquettes are taken from the shuyukh with certain characteristics. He says, but this isn't enough, Khalid. It's not just based on someone's blood. He says, looking at someone's genealogy after istiqamat al-tariqah, a person being forthright, a person being righteous, a person being on the sunnah, a person being a qualified scholar of hadith, a person being free from bid'ah. Then you look towards the other points. Everybody clear on this or not? And many people, they get caught up and they get stuck on linealogy, on race, and on blood, and they lose focus on the initial point. This person is the most qualified teacher, period. And he comes from low lineage. This person isn't the most qualified teacher, but he comes from high lineage. So I'm going to study with him and not study with that person. That's a capital mistake. Everybody clear on this or not? Khairan, inshallah ta'ala. He mentions a statement here of Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, rahimahullah, that whenever they want to study hadith with someone, they will look towards his behavior. And they will look towards how he offered the salah. And they will look to how he treated people and dealt with people. And then they would what? They would take from him, not just his name, who he was, and what the people said about him. خيرا إن شاء الله. فضل
ذكر مما يجتنب السماع منه في ترك السماع من الفاسق. اتفق أهل العلم على أن السماع ممن ثبت فسقه لا يجوز، ويثبت الفسق بأمور كثيرة لا تختص بالحديث. فأما ما يختص بالحديث منها فمثل أن يضع متون الحديث على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أو أسانيد المتون، ويقال إن الأصل في التفتيش عن حال الرواه كان لهذا السبب. ومنها أن يدعي السماع ممن لم يلقه. ولهذه العلة قيد الناس مواليد الرواة وتاريخ موتهم، فوجدت روايات لقوم عن شيوخ قصرت أسنانهم عن إدراكهم.
طيب, the next point, it says the people that you shouldn't study with. The exact opposite. The scholars, the teachers that you should avoid, that you must stay away from and avoid. First and foremost, he mentions the fasiq, wicked people, sinful people, mutinous people, people that don't have righteousness and piety. He says there's no difference of opinion among the people of knowledge that those who are proven to be fusaq, you are not allowed to learn from them. You're not supposed to listen to them and take narrations from them. If they're proven to be what? Fasiqs. Everybody clear on this? He says here, and it isn't specific to hadith. There are reasons behind a person being declared a fasiq in Islam. As far as hadith reasons, then for someone to fabricate narrations, to make up a hadith, to fabricate a statement of the Prophet ﷺ, to fabricate the asanid, make up different chains of narration. And some people, they say that this was the original reason why the people began to investigate narrators. The science of ilm al-rijal started off like this, because people were lying. He says, or a person claiming to have met someone that they didn't actually what? Didn't actually meet. And that is why the people began to record the dates of birth and death, to prove that there are people who are lying. How did you meet this person and he died 10 years before you were born? How did you learn from this person and he had left Toronto 20 days before you arrived? Everybody understand this? This is the day of his flight. This is the day of your flight. It's impossible for you to have met that person. Everybody understand this? Because the people, they begin to lie and exaggerate. He says, so someone who makes fisq, whether it's outside of hadith or whether it is what? Inside of hadith. Everybody clear on this or not? You can make fisq inside of hadith by doing these things, or you can be a fasiq having nothing to do with one's studies. Everybody clear on this or not? طيب, فضل.
وضبط أصحاب الحديث صفات العلماء وهيئاتهم وأحوالهم أيضا لهذه العلة، وقد افتضح غير واحد من الرواة في مثل ذلك.
طيب, ماشي. قال أبو بكر الخطيب:
وإذا سلم الراوي من وضع الحديث وادعاء السماع ممن لم يلقه وجانب الأفعال التي تسقط بها العدالة، غير أنه لم يكن له كتاب بما سمعه فحدث من حفظه، لم يصح الاحتجاج بحديثه حتى يشهد له أهل العلم بالأثر والعارفون به أنه ممن قد طلب الحديث وعاناه وضبطه وحفظه.
Someone who's actually studied, formally studied. They have it under their belt. Not someone who's self-taught, someone who popped out of thin air. And this is regardless, whether it's a scholar or a student of knowledge. Someone just pops up out of the middle of nowhere. And then they cause fitna and they say this. And then, in most cases, history has taught us the people who come out of thin air and they make a great deal of noise and clamor, in most cases they end up what? Back to thin air. But after they've what? Caused a great deal of fitna, a great deal of corruption, then they go and they vanish. Everybody understand this? فضل في ترك السماع
في ترك السماع من أهل الأهواء والبدع. وبسنده عن الثوري يقول: من سمع من مبتدع لم ينفعه الله بما سمعه ومن صافحه فقد نقض الإسلام عروة عروة. وإذا كان الراوي من أهل الأهواء والمذاهب التي تخالف الحق لم يسمع منه وإن عرف بالطلب والحفظ.
طيب, the next point is similar to pertaining to adala, is someone who's an innovator, or someone who's practicing innovations from the people of ahwa, the people of desires, the people of bid'ah. So, not the point is extremely clear, is that your sheikh is supposed to be someone who's prime in all aspects. He's not supposed to have major flaws pertaining to his piety, pertaining to bid'ah, pertaining to his or her qualifications, a well-rounded pound-for-pound package. Everybody clear on this? هذا هو المقصود. Is that they don't have any major khalal, inwardly and outwardly, and not just one aspect, duna akhar. So, person of innovations we don't take from, but this person who's supposed to be upon the haqq and the way of the salaf, he's a well-known sinner, a well-known fasiq. We can take from him. We say no. Has to be here and has to be what? There. All well-rounded balance. So he mentions a few athar here with regards to warning from taking from Ahlul Bid'ah and the people of Al-Ahwa. And not to learn from them even if they're known from having precision and even if they're known for being skilled. Obviously هذا يحتاج إلى تفصيل. إن هذا بهذا الإطلاق لا يصح أبدا. بحال من الأحوال بهذا الإطلاق. لابد من تقييد. حتى الثوري كم روى عنه ممن قيل فيه. طيب, moving forward to the next point, ترك السماع.
ترك السماع ممن لم يعرف أحكام الرواية وإن كان مشهورا بالصلاح والعبادة.
The next point, which proves what we just said, is another aspect. And that is someone who's righteous and pious, but they are not scholastically precise. They're not skilled in hadith, but they pray at night, they fast during the daytime, they give sadaqah, they sit on a saf al-awwal, they wipe the head of the orphan, they visit the graves. They're pious and they're righteous, but they're not scholars. And that's another dangerous problem of 2018. When we talk about the YouTube personality. He's a good person. He's a nice older brother. Look, he has henna in his beard. He has gray hair. He has nur. But when did he actually seek ilm? When did this person become a person who's learned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? And you'll find that someone giving a tafsir of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ statement. This is what this hadith means. This hadith is authentic. This hadith is not authentic. You don't have to implement this. This is not obligatory. And just because a person is righteous, he's on the front row every single day for Fajr. He never misses takbiratul ihram for any salah. That does not qualify him to be a what? A scholar of hadith. And we know what many of the Salaf al-Salih would say. It says, ma ra'ayna. He says, we never saw what? Qawman akthara. He says, we never saw people who lied more than the what? Than the righteous. We never saw people who made more fabricated hadiths than righteous people. Meaning incidentally or accidentally. They got involved with things that they shouldn't be what? Involved with. You can't pray all night and fast all day. You can't do that and be a scholar of hadith. Amount of time, it has to be dedicated and devoted to what? Review and sharpening your blade. Keeping it sharp. Keeping the rust off of it. You have to constantly review. You have to constantly train. And you can't do that if you're passing out at nighttime from the prayer. And if you're fainting in the daytime because your tongue is turning green from fasting. It won't work like that. That's what they call it, ghaflatul salihin. They will call ghaflatul salihin, heedlessness of the righteous, in which they only devoted themselves to ibadah and they became sloppy and lax in what? In the sciences of hadith. Type, next point. He says here, وبسند عن رجاء يعني ابن حيوة أنه قال لرجل حدثنا ولا تحدثنا عن متماوت ولا طعان. طيب, كراهة السماع من الضعفاء. تفضل.
كراهة السماع من الضعفاء إذا كان الراوي صحيح السماع غير أنه متساهل في الرواية ومعروف بالغفلة، فالسماع منه جائز غير أنه مكروه ويضعف حاله بما ذكرنا.
طيب, people that are weak, they're scholars of hadith, but they're not the strongest. That's another thing to avoid. طيب, moving forward, السابع, آداب الطلب.
آداب الطلب: ينبغي لطالب الحديث أن يتميز في عامة أموره عن طرائق القوم باستعمال آثار رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
طيب, we mentioned that already, and we'll summarize this for lack of time with regards to the akhlaq of the Messenger of Allah. And that's the purpose of the book, obviously. And using the akhlaq of the Messenger of Allah in every single aspect of your life, as a student of hadith. If you're unwilling, or if you're not capable of doing this, then you should not devote yourself to the study of hadith. Being a disciple is not for you if you're not willing to try and to implement that. Bidnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, وَيَجِبُ عَلَى طَالِبِ الْحَدِيثِ أَن يَتَجَنَّبَ اللَّعْبَ وَالْعَبَثِ وَالتَّبَذُّلِ فِي الْمَجَالِسِ بِالسُّخْفِ والضحك والقهقهة وكثرة التنادر وإدمان المزاح والإكثار منه فإنما يستجاز من المزاح يسيره ونادره وطريفه الذي لا يخرج عن حد الأدب وطريقة العلم فأما متصله وفاحشه وسخيفه وما أوغر منه الصدور وجلب الشر فإنه مذموم وكثرة المزاح والضحك يضع من القدر ويزيل المروءة. He talks about joking too much, laughing too much, playing around too much, and how it takes away from one's seriousness and from one's awe and causes people to lose respect when he jokes too much and he laughs too much. He says making a joke every now and then, smiling, something which is permissible, something which is interesting and subtle, it's one thing. But just dying and rolling on the floor all day, every day, and never being serious and never being upfront and serious, he says that is a huge no-no. And then people will not respect you if that is how you deal with them and that is how you behave with them. It's a very serious issue here. And many of us, we infringe on this issue on a daily basis, unfortunately. And of course, certain things are relative. The time of Khatib al-Baghdadi is very different from our time, of course. Certain things that we would laugh about and we would consider to be balanced, not even being, laughing and joking too much, they may consider to be too much. They may consider that to be extreme, but it's different time and a different what? A different place. And there's all of these etiquettes which are not concrete, the ones that are based off of relative time and place, that's how they are to be what? Understood. How old do you have to be to seek hadith? How old should you be before you teach a class? How many people do you have to hear from? Imam Malik, he says, I met all of these scholars, 50 scholars, 100 scholars, they all gave me ijazah, so on and so forth. That's for the time of Imam Malik and in place of Imam Malik. That's not our time and our place. You may not even have 100 scholars in your country, let alone in your city. Everybody understand this? Khairan, inshallah. So this is a very important point here, to have a balance and to minimize always laughing and dying and joking too much. Khairan, inshallah ta'ala. الثامن
أدب الاستئذان على المحدث والدخول عليه. قال أبو بكر: إذا وجد الطالب الراوي نائما فلا ينبغي له أن يستأذن عليه بل يجلس وينتظر استيقاظه أو ينصرف إن شاء.
The etiquette of entering upon the hadith master. Do you just go into his house or his room or his dojo or his masjid? Do you knock first? What if he's asleep? What do you do? If there's a class online, he doesn't answer the phone, do you call again? Obviously this is relative. And there's certain teachers that will become angry if you don't call, if you don't knock. They become upset with you and say, why didn't you come in? You were sleeping, Sheikh. They say, you're supposed to waking me up. I was waiting for you to call me on Skype. I was waiting for you to call me. It's okay. And then there are other people that become aggravated and annoyed. So this goes to show you that it's formless, and every teacher is different. Every muhaddith is what? Is different. Some people become extremely annoyed, and others don't what? They don't mind. So you have to know your teacher. You have to know your what? You have to know your teacher. There is no concrete rule. The basic rule is to show the utmost amount of respect to your teacher. The one who's giving you hadith and feeding you these narrations is for you to show him the what? Utmost respect. How that is manifested, how that is specifically applied, that varies from what? Min shakhsin ila شخص. فهمنا هذا؟ طيب, and it's very important, and it can save you a lot of heartache when you understand the concept of formless. طيب, next point. كيفية الوقوف.
كيفية الوقوف على باب المحدث للاستئذان. إذا كان باب دار المحدث مفتوحا فينبغي للطالب أن يقف قريبا منه ويستأذن، وإن كان الباب مردودا فله أن يقف حيث شاء منه ويستأذن. ويكره للطالب إذا استأذن فقيل من ذا أن يقول أنا من غير أن يسمي نفسه.
طيب, this goes to show you how advanced the Muslims were above the rest of the world. Look how detailed the etiquettes get, even to the point of standing at the door. What is the proper way of standing at the door? Should your head be low? Stand on the right side, on the left side? If the door is open, if the door is locked? It goes to show you the finely tuned details of seeking hadith. This was over approximately 1,000 years ago. Everybody clear on this? How advanced the Muslims were. So he says here, if the door is open, then you should stand close by the door and don't enter the door. If the door is closed, etc. Once again, this depends on the what? On the teacher. If the sheikh says, come over to my house after Salat al-Asr, the door will be open. You stand out there and you wait. The sheikh is inside making tea. He's gathering the dates and the coffee. Like many of the sheikh would do in Medina themselves. You wait, he says, why didn't you come in? Why didn't you enter? He says, sheikh, no. He says, Allah, I told you to come over. So it depends on the teacher as well, as we previously said. Nah? And he says, who is it? You should never say, it's me. It's me. Rather, give your name. ولا يجوز الدخول على المحدث.
ولا يجوز الدخول على المحدث من غير استئذان، فمن فعل ذلك أمر بالخروج وأن يستأذن ليكون تأديبا له في المستقبل. وإذا حضر جماعة من الطلبة باب المحدث وأذن لهم في الدخول فينبغي أن يقدموا أسنهم
this should come in first.
ويدخلوه أمامهم فإن ذلك هو السنة. وإن قدم الأكبر على نفسه من كان أعلم منه جاز ذلك وكان حسنا.
كراهة تسليم الخاصة.
كراهة تسليم الخاصة. إذا دخل الطالب على الراوي فوجد عنده الجماعة فيجب أن يعمهم بالسلام.
Everyone should get the salutations and not just give salams to one person. Not just give salams to the sheikh or to the teacher. Everyone deserves the basic right of the salam. طيب, next point. استحباب المشي على البساط حافيا.
يستحب للطالب ألا يمشي على بساط المحدث إلا بعد نزع عليه من قدميه، لمن لا يؤمن أن يكون في النعلين من الأقذار، وذلك أيضا من التواضع وحسن الأدب. ويجب أن يبتدئ بنزع اليسرى من عليه دون اليمنى.
طيب, he says that when you walk on the carpet of the muhaddith, you come to sit with him and study with him, then you should take off your sandals, take off your shoes. He says first and foremost for the purpose of cleanliness, and secondly for the purpose of humility and humbleness, and to show some type of respect. We're not going to get into the issue of praying with shoes and the cultural clash that many cultures consider coming into the masjid with shoes as a huge cardinal sin. We're not here to discuss that right now, and how mukhalif of the sunnah that is, in which praying in your shoes is the greatest sin after shirk. Some masjids we've been in, Hishan, in which you literally have to take off your shoes on the what? The sidewalk. Not in the front door, not the steps, not the area. You literally take off your shoes. This was in January, right? It was freezing cold, it was snowing, it was ice. And you had to take off your boots on the sidewalk, literally. You're on the sidewalk, people are walking by and you have to do what? فَخْلَعْنَا عَلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ sacred valley of Tuwa. This is unfortunate. We're not going to get into that right now. Khairan, inshallah. What's important is the point is one point and one point only, and that is to show the what? Utmost what? Respect to the teacher. And obviously, many of these adab and these akhlaq are going to be cultural or culturally based, Khalid. If you're from a culture in which people keep their shoes on, then there's nothing wrong with that. If you're from a culture in which it's taboo to have your shoes on someone's carpet, then وَهَكَذَا. طيب. This proper understanding is the thing which prevents you from ghulu and taking things absolutely and then becoming gung-ho and becoming zealous. I read this. Sufyan al-Thawri, he said that. لَمْ يَنْفَعَهُ اللَّهُ, so on and so forth. And not understanding the time and the place and the atmosphere. and how many aspects of Islam, many aspects are based off of a time, a place, and a cultural atmosphere. Everybody understand this? What is looked down upon in this culture is not necessarily looked down upon what? In another culture. If we have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, then there's no speech. There's nothing to say. It's clear as day. But if it's a cultural reference, then it's going to be subjective to the what? To the people. خيرا إن شاء الله. ومن الآداب
ومن الآداب جلوس الطالب حيث ينتهي به المجلس والنهي عن تخطي الرقاب. الكراهية له أن يقيم رجلا ويجلس مكانه. كراهة الجلوس وسط الحلقة وفي صدرها. كراهية الجلوس بين اثنين بغير إذنهما. قال أبو بكر: ومتى فسح له اثنان ليجلس بينهما فعل ذلك. إنها كرامة أكرماه بها فلا ينبغي أن يردها.
With regards to sitting in the circle, the specific adab. We know the general adab to sit in a circle, but what are the specific adab? He says don't kick people in the back, elbow people and knee people in the shoulders. Excuse me, sorry, pardon me, out the way, oh, I'm sorry, bismillah, afwan. You just keep moving people out of the way to get closer to the sheikh. You're half an hour late. You're 45 minutes late, and you move people out the way. That's a no-no, just like Jumu'ah, huh? Also, he says getting someone up and then taking their seat, or sitting in the middle of the circle, or splitting people up, sitting between them without their permission. طيب, until the point in which he says, وَيَجِبُ طيب. Moving forward. كراهة القعود
كراهية القعود في موضع من قام وهو يريد العودة إلى المجلس.
طيب, before we move forward, inshallah ta'ala, what time are we supposed to stop? 10 p.m. is the adhan? 9:45 is the adhan. Alright, so what we'll do, b'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll stop for the adhan and then take some questions, inshallah, and conclude our session for tonight. Or we're going to take the questions now or after the adhan, Murad? Do the questions after the adhan? Inshallah.